Hi, my name is Berenice Rosales, and I will be talking about the astonishing autobiography called Farwell to Manzanar, published in 1973 by a very brave Japanese woman called Jeanne Wakatsuki Housten, and with the help of her husband, James D. Housten. This nonfiction memoir was an attempt to illustrate the terrible conditions that she had to overcome at the Manzanar internment camp during World War II as a 7-year-old child. My purpose of revealing this book to the high school board is so this novel can be kept on the list of books to read before college. I'm sure most of all students, by the time they get to high school, have heard of the events World War I, World War II, Pearl Harbor, and the cruelty around the world, and it's an amazing fact to learn about it in school. But what would give it a more exciting fact is getting to hear someone's interpretations from the real life story, and they actually lived through such an event. Like Jeanne. Jeanne tried her best to recall every important detail that she personally went through since the bombing of Pearl Harbor up to the point when she revisited Manzanar with her family in April 1972. However, writing the story based on her first-hand experience doesn't automatically guarantee her reliable source, but still is an incredible fact to hear she lived through such an event. World War II, when we hear that name, we hear bombing, we think of bombing, gun laws, family separation, just raising doubts, crushing hopes. And as a 7-year-old, not only did she live through it, but she actually made a living out of it with her and her family. I'm sure as a child she didn't know what was going on, what the adults were talking about or anything like that. But Jeanne carefully categorizes this story in a chronological order, where she referred the events that actually occurred. Like, for example, the signing of the Executive Order in 1966 by Franklin Roosevelt on February 19, 1942, where they ultimately forced her and her family to pack up all their stuff, all their life they made a living out of, and to leave to the internment camp of Manzanar. As I was reading this passage, you can feel her anger and her sadness, how she was so confused on why were they leaving? Why were they going everywhere? Why, as I felt like if my soul was lifted out of my body and actually placed there where she was. She recalled how she had been tagged for identification purposes right before the trip to Manzanar, which was her first time riding on a bus ride away from Los Angeles. She explains how her feeling was bitter excitement, but not understanding the trouble but as a 7-year-old, she's probably not understanding the trouble her mother went through to keep her family safe. Although she experienced her events, she might have viewed the slightly base due to her incapability to interpret or understand certain events at age 7. But it's still nevertheless, it's still an amazing fact of a 7-year-old actually living through this. We studied Pearl Harbor and World War II at some point of this high school years, but this book would be a perfect example of getting to know more of how the Japanese grew into this. I feel this can make a perfect stay to know before college. It's a great novel that also it talks about a family memoir, and it can relate to most old people. To most people that have actually lived through these events, and it's an astonishing fact to just learn about someone's living actually through that. That's what really got to me in this book. I couldn't wrap my head of how, if it's so much damage and so much crushing dreams and everything, and terrified, why would you still want to live? As a 7-year-old, it probably ruined your childhood. But I feel it's a great lesson to learn before we even go to college, and will be the perfect way of knowing of how the Japanese grew into it, and how a family's strong help could feel through it. I say this book should stay in the list before reading to college. And it's an amazing fact to just get a clue of how Pearl Harbor actually was in 1941. Thank you.